host, your neighbor, David Gornowski. So glad to be with you again, live on radio. Where we're headed for another day of excitement as we learn together, as we grow together, thinking about the news in a creative way. One in which, here's a genius idea. How about we stop the left versus right blame games? That's not helping anybody. Does that help you make more money in your life? Does that help you take care of your family better? Have those electoral politics with Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy, has that helped you if you're a Republican? Or Nancy Pelosi, has she done a lot to take care of you? Sure, they've printed money out of thin air to give you another some scraps off the king's table. That's kind of what you do to a nice, cattle or dog that you really prefer, is you have a feast based on the loot that you have extracted from a community. And then you throw some of the scraps off the king's table onto the ground, the cold, hard ground. And at that point, guess what happens? You get to have your fill. That's called stimulus. You see, a dog is stimulated when he gets to have the scraps. A dog is stimulated when he gets to have a little bit of the crumbs. It makes them feel warm and excited in life. And they want you to feel that same way when you get your stimulus. And I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's a bad idea to take money from government when it's created out of thin air at your expense. But I understand the concept that many people have, which is, hey, they're printing all this money for all the fat cats. Let me have my scrap too. And if you really want to be prideful and fighting for that little piece of chicken wing scrap that's thrown onto that dusty floor that they give you, then that's fine. But I think we can do better, can't we, right? We can do better when we take care of our lives ourselves, when we care about our communities, when we take care of our families first, and we make sure we do things that enrich the value and the quality of life for those around us. And those are things that can be done in our own life. That's the good news is we don't have to rely on DC to do those things. We don't have to rely on DC to improve our financial situation, to get out of debt, to understand the toxic side effects of things like toxic seed oils, which are heavily subsidized at your expense, and which are linked to the comorbidities that have become a serious, serious problem in this pandemic. Those are the things that we can work on that don't require politicians, and they happen to be the most important things of our life. So we are the program, of course, for folks who are tired of politics. They're sick and tired of left versus right blame games, and they want something that's a little different, but it's actually much, much more relevant to their life. That's what A Neighbor's Choices stands for. We stand for empowering each other with skin in the game. You know who doesn't really have skin in the game? Politicians. You know who doesn't really have skin in the game? Bureaucrats, who have a monopoly on the services that they're providing. You know who doesn't have skin in the game? Vaccine manufacturers with this new pandemic. They are exempt from legal skin in the game. They have immunity. And as a result, you have an unprecedented situation we're in which the whole world is trying to pressure everybody to take these things when they don't have FDA approval, many of them, and there's just not been enough time to be able to determine what's going on with these things. They're rushed out to market. So here's a story that exemplifies that. Major European nations suspend the use of AstraZeneca vaccine. This is in the Associated Press by Frank Jordans. Germany, France, Italy, and Spain became the latest countries Monday to suspend use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine over reports of dangerous blood clots in some recipients, though the company and European regulators have said there is no evidence the shot is to blame. AstraZeneca is just one of the 3 vaccines in use on the continent, but the cascading number of nations raising the alarm amounts to another setback for the European Union's vaccination drive. which has been plagued by shortages and other hurdles and is lagging well behind the campaigns in Britain and the US. The EU Drug Regulatory Agency called a meeting for Thursday to review reports' findings on the AstraZeneca vaccine and to decide whether actions need to be taken. The furor comes as much of Europe is tightening restrictions on schools and businesses amid surging cases of COVID-19. Germany's health minister said the decision to suspend AstraZeneca shots was taken on the advice of the country's vaccine regulator, the Paul Ehrlich Institute, which called for further investigation into 7 cases of clots in the brains of people who had been vaccinated. Today's decision is a purely precautionary measure, Jens Spahn said. French President Emmanuel Macron said his country will likewise suspend shots until at least Tuesday afternoon. Italy's drug regulator announced a temporary ban less than 24 hours after saying the alarm of the vaccine wasn't justified. And Spain said it will stop using the vaccine for 2 weeks while experts review its safety. AstraZeneca said there has been 37 reports of blood clots out of more than 17 million people vaccinated in the 27-country European Union and Britain. And the drug maker said there is no evidence the vaccine carries an increase of risk of clots. In fact, it said the incidence of clots is much lower than would be expected to occur naturally in a general population of this size and is similar to that of other licensed COVID-19 vaccines. The World Health Organization and the EU's European Medicines Agency has also said that the data does not suggest the vaccine caused the clots and that people should continue to be immunized. Many thousands of people develop blood clots annually in the EU for different reasons. The European Medicines Agency said the incidence in vaccinated people seems not to be higher than that seen in the general population. So it's interesting to see. Rarely do you ever see, something negative about these vaccines from government bureaucracies, especially in Western countries. And so who knows how long that will last and what will come out of that suspension. But it just goes to show again the problem I have with governments and NGOs and corporations trying to pressure people to take something that doesn't have skin in the game. There's no liability. And I think that there should be, if you're going to have a market and you're going to have people provide services and goods which are to be accountable in terms of their quality and their efficacy and their safety, that there should be some accountability in the things that are put out there. That's just common sense. And yet that seems to be too much to ask. Of course, they'll use, it's an emergency. That's why we have to have that. But that doesn't seem to be a credible argument for me. And meanwhile, they continue to try to demonize a state like Florida for having a more lax approach to things. There's a total kind of vilification of Florida, just like there was with Sweden, for its more hands-off approach relative to other governments around the world. And I don't think that that's warranted. But of course, why do they have to do that? Because Florida, for whatever its faults may be, has demonstrated that you do not have to have heavy-handed stay-at-home orders, restaurant closures, and centralized mass mandates to deal with this situation. And if you want everybody to be on board with groupthink, you cannot allow for any outliers to maintain their program without being totally vilified and smeared. And I saw that you could see celebrities. It was Reese Witherspoon or somebody, walking by another celebrity, and they have to stay socially distanced on a hiking trail in California, 12 feet away or something, and with a mask on outside. And this is supposed to be a trendy thing, of course, continuing, right? Oh, it's trendy, to be an absolute buffoon about science. It's cool to fit in. And Hollywood, of course, is the machine of how to get people to want to fit into the most mindless, stupid stuff imaginable. Like wearing these are young actresses and they cannot sit next to each other in the photo. They have to take a photo far, far away from each other and with their mask on in a outside in a nature area. This is a joke. It's embarrassing that we live in a world where that is not continually laughed and scoffed at as anti-science stupidity. This situation is one that we have been working towards for some time because we have vilified the concept of reason. We vilified the concept of science. Science has been drugged, has been thrown around into the mud, and has been totally politicized for very anti-scientific purposes. And that's a shame. And it's something that we have to continually speak out against because our freedom is more important than their hysterical campaigns. And freedom and skin in the game is the way you beat diseases. Innovation, unleashing diversity of options in local governance. That's the key to deal with viruses or chronic illnesses. It's not the top-down failed approach. You want to trust the same government who's been having a war on cancer since Nixon, and have they won that war? Are they close to winning that war? And you want them to wage a war on COVID? Yeah, it's not going to happen. I don't care who you elect, Trump, Biden, whoever. They don't know how to win a war on anything, apparently. So let's take a quick break and return in just a moment. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. Or you can drop us a comment on our YouTube live stream. Or maybe you have something you want to weigh in about the halting of AstraZeneca vaccine in Europe. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Back in just a moment.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187, Equal Housing Lender.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gronowski here, and we're having a good time talking about the news together. I want to turn to this story here. It says, Putin critic Navalny serving time at a penal colony outside Moscow. France24.com reports. He's serving a 2.5-year jail term, the article says, in a penal colony outside Moscow. And he was locked up in a real concentration camp. He says, I have to admit that the Russian prison system was able to surprise me. Navalny posted on Instagram along with an old photo of himself with a close-cropped haircut. I had no idea that it was possible to arrange a real concentration camp 100 kilometers from Moscow. Navalny added that he was in penal colony number 2 in the town of Pokrov in the Vladimir region northeast of Moscow with a freshly shaven head. So that's the nature of the state. The state does stuff like that. And the thing that I want people to learn is that, remember Gina Carano got attacked because she pointed out that human nature is such that you can turn into really tyrannical, violent ideology fast when you normalize the idea of hating our neighbor for whatever reason it is. And sometimes that's done in a seemingly not as extreme form, and then other times it happens in an extremely extreme and horrible form, like the record of history shows. But you're not allowed to talk about the fact that human nature is fallen. And because you're not allowed to talk about it, you can't have an honest conversation about politics. That's the way the media and the television TV party wants you to think. The TV party does not want you to say, hey, you know what? Is my government possible? Is it possible that they could criminalize political opponents too? Well, how many criminal investigations do they have on Donald Trump going on right now? Does that mean that he's innocent when I say that they're investigating him? No. But what it does mean is that if you, as I said before, if you think for one moment that Clinton and Obama and other folks have not done things that have been dubious and criminally suspect, but that Trump, the first guy who's ever won who said, who didn't start a new war and was an outsider, is the first time they're going to have how many investigations? 20? Why don't they make it 50? How about 200 criminal investigations? Can they do that? And there are people today who, they have normalized the hatred of opponents. It is a normal position in the Democrat base to crave and hunger for the arrest of Ivanka Trump because she is the daughter of Donald Trump. And because she, has a certain image and that she is considered to be, pretty, and she's considered to be a rich girl of a billionaire who is a bad person. He wasn't bad when the Democrats were getting their money from him. And when he was going on Democrat television, NBC is a Democrat establishment. And it's not about Democrats. It's about the establishment that they represent. They'll work with neocons as they've done all their times too. It's all about you got to be pro-war, pro-speech codes, pro-fake trade deals, pro-regulatory capture and control of the economy. And that's what makes the TV party love you. And so, it's just interesting to see that, they have mainstreamed hate so much that I bet if you polled Democrats and people who, neocons and so forth, how many percentage of them want to see Ivanka Trump be in prison because her dad is Donald Trump? That's very high, I would imagine. Or maybe they've done it already. But that you see that normalization of hatred. So are we really that far away from these horrible models of totalitarian vilification of opposition? It seems to me that the veneer, the Mickey Mouse veneer of tolerance is starting to lose quickly its believability. And that we continue to see, look at what happened with Tucker Carlson. He was having people in the official Marines Twitter account attack the man That's not the role of the military, to get involved with political commentary. They were mad as can be that a commentator had talked about, is it wise to have people who are pregnant on the front lines of war? And so people get really emotional. They don't know how to think logically. And they think, okay, does that mean that you could never have a pregnant woman operate machinery? No, that doesn't mean that. The point is, why is that what we're doing? Why are we doing that? Why is that how we want to create a military with that kind of situation, where you put pregnant women on the front lines of all the war? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I think the vast, vast majority of the human species would very much agree with us on that. But yet in the insane world of the TV party mentality, oh, this is a scandal. And of course, that has swept into the Pentagon as well, because they're totally issuing these woke French postmodern, bromides and so forth from their official accounts and press releases and so forth. It's a total disaster, to see this kind of insane, stupid groupthink sweep so many institutions so fast. And it's been happening for a long time, of course, but I guess the intensity of the religious devotion to this French postmodern McWoke leftism is really, really, increasing and ramping up in the last few years. Donald Trump really hurt their feelings, because they were told their whole lives that the way you get power is you do exactly what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton do, which is you talk a big game about political correctness, but you pillage people all the time. I mean, Hillary Clinton pillaged the people of Haiti during a natural disaster, gave her brother exclusive gold mining access to their country in a time of disaster. And yet to this day, all your Hollywood stars and actresses exalt this woman like she was an icon of female empowerment. Didn't matter that she pillaged the people of Haiti just for one country, just starting with one. What matters is she spoke political correctness. There's a magical power with using eloquent language, even if you're not a very good speaker. Like Hillary Clinton's not a particularly good speaker. But if you use the right speech codes, you can lull people into a fantasy that somehow when you're doing evil, bad stuff, it's okay because you soothe people's ears with ridiculous rhetoric. It's very amazing to see this happen. And how many people who you think are very smart and intelligent and adult, sophisticated people, they just lap up this insanity. We'll take a break and return in just a moment.
Ronald Reagan would turn over in his grave if he saw what's going on today.
Crazy things are happening.
You cannot be afraid. You've got to stand up for what you believe is right.
But one thing is for sure.
You can't trust anybody.
For talk, news, and information, you can count on us.
Enough is enough. I mean, I almost blew a gasket.
Good for the country.
I know what I'm talking about. A lot of wackos out there.
Your connection to talk about it. The all-new News Talk 1040, WHBO.
It's a matter of trust, and White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki today saying the Biden administration doesn't always have it when trying to convince many Republicans to vaccinate.
We are not always the right voice, the Biden administration or somebody standing at this podium to a range of conservative communities. And we have to meet people where they are, which is why we're taking a number of approaches and using a number of tactics,
including reaching out to doctors and clergy to do the convincing. The vaccine rollout has stalled in much of Europe. Inoculations with the AstraZeneca vaccine not available here suspended due to reports of blood clots. No conclusive link, say health officials. In San Diego, 3 people dead after a 71-year-old driver ran his vehicle over a curb and into a homeless encampment. 9 people hit and injured. 2 men arrested for assault on Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick during the January 6th insurrection. Sicknick later died. And Sound of Metal's Riz Ahmed nominated for a Best Actor Oscar, making him the first Muslim Best Actor in a leading role nominee. Dave Packer, ABC.
Neighbor's Choice returns live now. I'm your host, David Gornoski. Our website, onneighborschoice.com. You can call in at 727-587-1040 as we look at the news and analyze it from different angles, looking at the truth of our culture, not guided by stupid groupthink. We're tired of that. And Tina on our YouTube stream says, David, great interview on the Culinary Libertarian podcast. Really insightful conversation. And I thank you for that comment, Tina. I'm glad you listened to that episode. We've been doing different podcasts and radio programs that will listen and want to have a conversation. That particular discussion was about mimetic theory, which I've commented about before on this broadcast in many different ways, but it's always interesting to have great conversations. And people they disparage the word libertarian, and I don't particularly call myself a libertarian, but I do think that when you look at how ridiculous, how quickly churches can be swallowed up and shut down, how quickly restaurants and gyms can be just obliterated, and how they can be done so over and over again. Remember, just supposed to be 2 weeks, and now it's over a year now, right, since they've said that. And, you see how badly this stuff goes. And all of a sudden, maybe that principle that is identified with libertarianism is something we should have taken a lot more seriously a lot sooner. The idea that you have private contract and private property, and that this is not negotiable for governments to come in and just have majority rules or some kind of, half the time it's not even a majority rule because it's not even a legislative thing. It's an executive fiat decision that states are making to do what they're doing to businesses. And maybe it's time that we think about private property and private contract and freedom of worship, freedom of association, and free speech. All of these things have been brought to the focus more now than ever before. But maybe is it too late, or can we still actually act out principles that can change this country back or better than it's ever been before by embracing the things that are the best? And that is freedom, voluntary interaction, not coercion, not violence, not preemptive violence. We can't have that. Preemptive violence makes us lose sight of our humanity. Preemptive violence is something that really destroys communities. Because think about this. If you have to make every choice and you have to calculate it based on all these preemptive violence, which are regulations, mandates, subsidies, occupational licensure, all these different things are preemptively coercing you to do certain things and act certain ways, which ends up really destroying the fabric of a healthy society. Iva says, I found you through the Hyperlipid website. Well, that's very great. That was Peter Dobromilski's interview that I had on our website. You can go to neighborschoice.com and see that interview where we talked about his fascinating, this is a deep dive conversation about seed oils and the dangers of seed oils. And it's extremely important. And we talk about it all the time, and people tease me, hey, you talk about seed oils a lot. That's because it's extremely important. And if you know something that can change people's lives in a simple change, and you have a platform like media to do it, I don't have time to just, try to talk about Democrats and Republicans all day when people are facing horrible economic destruction and physical destruction of their bodies because they're eating toxic amounts of seed oils every day. And so that's a real issue we'll continue to talk about, because I don't hear anybody else saying anything about it in mainstream, broadcast media like what we're doing here. So there's a lot of different stories that we can talk about, and we're going to get to as many as we can that are relevant to your life. Obviously, there continues to be some real disturbing stuff coming out of what you see with public school education. That's something that is a big problem for what I see, which is that you keep watching these videos, and I'm looking at one that a guy named Elijah Schaefer posted of, it's like he says, this is on revolver.news, it says, lockdown, maximum security grade school in globalist American empire. And Elijah Schaefer says, take your kids out of public school as soon as possible. This is child abuse. And you watch the video, and it's just disturbing because they've got the kids all sitting at these little desks far, far apart from one another with these cubicles on laptops. with masks. So you got a mask on, and the kids don't have any infectious, how many people get really sick that are kids with this thing, right? Of course, the kids won't, the public schools probably got vegetable oils all over their food, see, because they're all about stupid control measures, not the protection of your body. They're very anti-human if you think about government. Think about how anti-human everything they do is. It's all about sterility. It's all about coldness. It's all about superficial stuff. Has nothing to do with like the real stuff that actually helps you. So they'll load these kids up with seed oils in their foods that they provide at the cafeteria. Sugar, seed oils, toxic sludge. But then they'll make them do these stupid things like put their desks far, far apart. I'm watching the video here. The kids all have to line up in the hallways far, far away from each other with the mask on. And they stand in attention like they're in some kind of maximum security prison. Got a masked person walking by. Kids on the laptop trying to log in. You got kids standing outside to attention on the sidewalk with 8 feet distance from each other with their mask on, just standing in solemn zombie-like state. They got temperature checks to walk. They have to walk in single. I mean, this is not, look, there's problems with public schools, single file line, all this stuff, but it's even more hellacious. It's even more disgusting when you give them an opportunity to be more disgusting and controlling. These people are nanny state bigots. They hate allowing people to have their own life. Everybody must conform. Everybody must have a mask on when you're a little kid that's not going to have any problem from this disease. They're not going to do anything to get you to stop eating the seed oils, which cause the comorbidities to be associated with bad experiences with this virus. But all these kids, they all have to stay. I'm watching the video. They're all staying very, very far apart. Nobody has any human contact. No high five. No handshakes. You can't see any smiles. If you have to have the mask over your nose. And you breathe those masks on all day, that stuff, it does limit your oxygen intake. I don't care what people say, these stupid bigots that want to tell us and intimidate us. They don't know anything about science. They don't know anything about health. They don't know anything about mitochondria. They don't know anything about anything. They have no authority to speak. They're just on platforms that have had enrichment because of, let me give an example. NBC got big. Why? They were owned by General Electric. How much money did General Electric how much money did the General Electric company make off of wars that we shouldn't have been in? See, they make money off of scoundrel situations. To go off to a war that's unconstitutional, that's how they make their money. So they get rich, and then they have this supposed leverage and authority because they're just rich off of wicked things like lobbying for unnecessary wars, using your kids, not NBC's executives' kids, right? Sending your kids off to war based on false, intelligence and false information. And then they get rich off of that, and they use that to go ahead and push everybody into believing that this somehow has any benefit for your health, to eat margarine and toxic soybean oil and all this stuff. And meanwhile, put your kid in this disgusting, anti-human, anti-dignity, anti-beauty environment, which is just another day in public school. What's it going to take for us to do the hard things to get our kids out of these situations permanently? That's something that you can do. That there is more, a lot of folks listening right now, maybe you're into voting and stuff. I am telling you, you will do more good to change the world by getting your kids or anybody you know's kids out of government school than anybody that you vote for. So if you think voting for Trump was a big deal or voting for Biden was a good thing for you, you're going to get more positive impact for your life and changing the world's life when you get your kids out of a failing government school and put them into a school, homeschool, or a good private school where they have respect and dignity. Now, I know there's private schools that don't meet up to the standards of quality education. So that's something that you have to be able to discern and figure out on your own. But to put your kids in this nonsense, in this disgusting situation, is just a travesty to me. That is a real simple way that you can change the world for a much better, longer term effect that will actually benefit your life better than anybody you can vote for. You think Mitch McConnell's got something better for you than you pulling your kid out of government school? You think that Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, those geniuses, I know he's not in there anymore, but they're all the same. It doesn't matter. Kevin McCarthy, they all have the same policies, same ridiculous corporatism, looting your money, looting your labor. You think that they can offer something better for you than what you could benefit from if you pull your kids out of government school? No way. So don't fixate on politics. Take care of the things that you can around you. Our nutrition, our finances, our education, our state of mind, getting fresh air, getting lots of sunlight, doing careers and work that empowers and stirs your soul. It empowers you. You know, one thing that conservative movement has always said is just do your job, whatever you do, and do it well. And that's fine. You can do that too. But also pursue things that actually make you really thrive and really push you and really maximize your talents. Take advantage of what job you have, but also find the thing that actually empowers maximizes your talents, pushes you to excellence. That's something that we should really cherish. So those are things that we're going to continue to stress in different ways, and we'll find stories and headlines that give us evidence for what we're trying to understand about nutrition or financial freedom or personal control over your education. Those are things that we'll continue to push for, because our program is not about politics. We talk about politics, but we also talk about solutions outside of politics, because that's where the real fun stuff is happening. Look at this story in HeraldMailMedia.com. It says, Granny shouldn't be out here. Maskless spring breakers flout Florida's South Beach COVID-19 rules. With a black mask pulled under his chin, 22-year-old Ace Beck weaved through spring breakers on busy Ocean Drive without any concern for catching COVID-19 or unwittingly passing it on to somebody else. The Alabama A&M junior, who spent Thursday afternoon in Miami Beach having fun and flirting with girls, said the big crowds didn't worry him. For one, he said he believed the tropical climate in South Florida would keep the virus at bay, and he didn't expect to run into any medical vulnerable seniors during spring break on South Beach. There's no way that a girl can cough, and I get it. It's too hot, Beck said, later adding, Granny shouldn't be out here anyways. It's too many people. Just as public health officials and city leaders feared, South Beach has become inundated with bare-faced, carefree spring breakers over the past month. The virus is still spreading, but young partygoers from all parts of the U.S. are mingling without observing social distancing and mostly without masks. That threatens to prolong the pandemic at a time when daily cases are gradually decreasing statewide and bigger sections of the population are getting vaccinated, said University of Florida infectious disease professor Dr. J. Glenn Morris Jr. We're getting closer to the end, Morris told the Miami Herald. Now is not the time to catch COVID. Why? Because it's catchable anymore, or what? What's the point? If it's near the end, what is it? If you catch it near the end, that's somehow okay. So this is ridiculous to me, because again, the young people don't have a high likelihood of having a bad experience with this virus. And they have a right to go on with their life. You know, of course, the media always lauded spring break for decades, right? Because they hated any kind of restraint on, personal desire. And they wanted to create a nihilistic culture where you can't tell me what to do. But now when the all-powerful government comes down and says, no, we're using this as a time to condition you to be more accustomed to a new normal of total state control. Now we don't like nihilistic spring break. Now you can do nihilistic spring break, I guess, type stuff in your house back at home as you stay watching Netflix and so forth, but you cannot go and gather together and do that. So now that's a problem for a media that long lavished attention and praise to a nihilistic type culture of pleasure first. But see, you can always see their hierarchy of values, right? Their hierarchy of values. Nihilism is very important, but what's more important for the media and TV media and the government is all consuming submission to their state, their religion, their God. That's what it's all about. And so that's why they do irrational anti-science things like tell young people who do not have really high cases of deadly situations with this virus that they can't go to the beach, that they can't hang out with their friends, that they have to spend their young years in total isolation watching, some program that was put on by Jeff Bezos at Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever. This is not acceptable. This is barbaric to treat people this way. And it's something that our culture is going to have to fight and challenge, because that's the only way you make it through a bout with authoritarian culture. You just don't flinch. You push right through it as nonviolently, of course, as possible, but as confidently as possible, creatively as possible, and firm in our resolve that this is not the kind of society that we're going to pass off to our children. We'll take a break and return after a short message. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Drop us a comment on our YouTube stream or call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Back in just a moment.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Listener on our YouTube comment stream says, so Biden has just deployed FEMA to the border, but has yet to call migrant surge a disaster. Hope FEMA is more successful there than they were during Katrina. And it's a good point there that you didn't have much of a good track record with what FEMA did. And of course, see, that goes back to my point that I've told you guys before. One of the laws of this program is that politicians are not only false gods, meaning they get praise and worship for things that they don't know how to do. They can't do it if they were a genius. They just don't have the ability to micromanage affairs without skin in the game. That's just natural human nature. But politicians are not just false gods, they're also scapegoats. Meaning when those grand schemes of ideology and government bureaucracies fail, you're supposed to finger point towards a politician and put all of your effort onto scandalizing them rather than dealing with the failed policy or bureaucracy completely. And see, that's an example where FEMA, of course, did a poor job because they're a government bureaucracy. That's what government bureaucracies do. They do a poor job for a living. It doesn't mean there's not great. Of course, there's great people working there. There's lots of great people working in really bad situations that are fundamentally, systemically not going to work. But with FEMA, they did a horrible job with the Katrina situation. But what did they do? They had to focus all the attention and wrath onto George W. Bush. Not that I'm saying he didn't deserve blame, but you see, when you have a persona, an avatar, a symbol, which is what politicians stand in, especially the president, then when things go wrong, you say, that person is the problem. He's incompetent. He's racist. He's inconsiderate. He's dumb. He appointed his friend. All politicians appoint their friends, right? It's just about, okay, when something goes wrong and you appointed your friend for that agency that was supposed to fix that thing, boom, you get the hit. And what does that do? Did anybody cut FEMA? They should have abolished FEMA. They should abolish these useless agencies completely. Just get rid of them completely. But nobody has the guts to do that because they're so obsessed with worshiping the state and just doing it in a different way, a better way, a more effective way, blah, 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 blah. And whenever things go wrong at these fundamentally broken agencies, oh, it's just that politician who's there. They're the problem. Get rid of them and yeah, FEMA will work wonderful. Yeah, okay, yeah. This is stupid. This is very immature. This doesn't have any kind of really coherence to this concept that, oh yeah, let's keep the Department of Education. How many times has the Republicans said they were going to cut that? They never do, right? They never cut the federal Department of Education. It just stays no matter what. And people just, because what happens is when human beings have a taste of power, they don't want to get rid of it. It's too intoxicating. Nobody wants to be the person who says, you know what, I'm the first Secretary of Federal Department of Education, and I'm going to abolish my position, the whole thing. Because once they get there, all of a sudden their phone calls start ringing, and all of a sudden all these people who have benefit from their power say, hey, you know, we can do this, we can do that. You would look really great if you did this. You could look really great if you did that. And you know what? When you're playing with other people's money, like government agencies are, you have no real impediment to say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to get rid of this, because the spectacle will be tremendously difficult to deal with. The spectacle will be a media that, again, the media is a proselytizing media. They are trying to sell you constantly, and they don't have to try very hard for a lot of folks, but they're constantly trying to get us to renew our faith and commitment to the sacred state. Renew your commitment to that good old time religion of the government, worshiping it, trusting it as your nanny to provide you your food, your health care, your college, your housing, right? Everything they can imagine, they can try to provide for you. And they cannot have anybody challenge that narrative. And so, you know, if you wanted to have principles and abolish a failing agency, you would have this supposed free press come out in unison every day and attack you as the worst monster ever to exist. That you are firing all these people's jobs and that you're a monster, you're a Grinch, you're disturbing. And they would come up with every smear possible because they cannot stand anybody that would provide an option outside of their all-encompassing, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God, the state. And so that's the sacred thing that must be preserved at all costs. Never allow anybody to say, you know what, we don't need that. We could actually do education better if we decentralized it. And so they condition people to hate their own freedom. They say something like freedom and they call it privatization. And there is a kind of bad privatization when it's crony privatization, where it's government and businesses working together. And that's bad. But they want to put that word onto any attempt to bring freedom back into a service or a good or a market. And so whenever you say, hey, let's just get our kids out of these schools that put them, 7 feet apart, put on a mask constantly, hidden inside of a cubicle. It's just so disgusting to do that. I can't believe anybody would do that to their own kid, to put them in that kind of environment every day just for daycare. That's worth it just to get the daycare service. Come on. And we wonder why we have the disgusting situation we have culturally today, because kids are just left in these daycares provided by government, and people think they're doing their part because they go and vote for some candidate every 4 years or whatever. Oh yeah, I'm really involved. I'm really changing the culture. Yeah, you're not doing anything if you participate in the same old complacency. I understand it's difficult. I understand it's hard, but that's what life is. It's tough. It's very hard. And these things are not black or white sometimes, And I understand that people are in situations where they feel like it's impossible to get out of where they're at, but I don't think it's impossible. I think people can do a lot of things that they don't think that they're capable of. And that's why, because we have a media, we have a government school system that tells you can't do things. And we have a media that tells you can't do things. You can't do things. You can't go to spring break without dying. You can't have a restaurant open without killing everybody. You can't take care of your own immune system with nutrition and proper understanding of the immune system and the mitochondrial health of our cells. You can't. That's all the media really tells us. You can't do it. But this program, A Neighbor's Choice, we will always stand by the idea that you can empower yourself with the proper knowledge to take care of your health, that you can empower yourself to equip your children with a proper, robust education, not a sloppy Mick education, that you can actually empower your health. You can empower your own career with choices you make right now. Don't let the television tell you you're not good enough. You're good enough. So let's get to work with that knowledge in hand. I'm David Gronowski. Thank you for joining me in this hour broadcast today. We'll continue in just a moment for our second hour, looking at the news, looking at stories, looking at more mythology in the news media. You'll want to look forward to that. But for now, Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. The Biden administration says one of their biggest pandemic challenges is convincing skeptical Americans to get vaccinated. There's one group they admitted today will be more challenging than others.
President Biden says it's not likely he will convince many reluctant Trump supporters that the COVID vaccine is critical and safe.
The thing that has more impact than anything Trump would say to the MAGA folks is what the local doctor, what the local preachers, what the local people in the community say.
To explain why getting the vaccine will help end the pandemic and lower everyone's risk. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
The vaccine rollout has stalled in much of Europe. Inoculations with the AstraZeneca vaccine, not available here, suspended due to reports of blood clots. No conclusive links, say health officials. And back here at home, a surge of unaccompanied children crossing the southern border. Underage migrants are now arriving in the U.S. alone at a pace of more than 15,000 a month. And they're facing deteriorating conditions at overcrowded facilities. Today, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy led a delegation to the border at El Paso, Texas.
We went through a new facility that was built just more than a year ago. They built it with a capacity they thought they could never meet, 1,040 people to be processed. Today broke that record. Today, they're beyond capacity.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
We have been looking at additional facilities to open, to move children, unaccompanied children, into facilities where they can receive access to healthcare, educational resources, mental health resources, legal resources.
FEMA has been enlisted to help. In San Diego, 3 people dead after a 71-year-old driver ran his vehicle over a curb and into a homeless encampment. 9 people hit and injured. On Wall Street, the Dow closed up 174 points. You're listening to ABC News.
This is good news, maybe exactly when you need it to. Right now, MediShare is waiving their new member fees. This could save you money on top of all that you'll save each month by becoming a member of MediShare. So many people are looking for a healthcare solution right now, seeing the cost of COBRA plans, for instance, and MediShare is the affordable alternative to health insurance. The typical family saves $500 a month. You might save even more. MediShare is a Christian community that shares each other's healthcare costs, and because of the current economic situation, they're making it easier than ever. Apply by March 31st. You can save an additional $170 on your first month. I'll give you the number here in a second, and if you call, you can get a price within 2 minutes. Just tell them the promo code SHARE to receive your additional savings. Maybe now is the time to make the switch like more than 400,000 people already have, and start saving. Here it is. Call 877-26-BIBLE. That's 877-26-BIBLE. 877-26-BIBLE.
Myanmar's military has imposed martial law across parts of the country following the deadliest day of protests since February's coup. There were reports that at least 50 people were killed when troops and police opened fire on protesters on Sunday. Protesters are demanding the release of democratically elected leaders. The military detained them, alleging voter fraud without providing any proof. It may not be surprising, but it's still not good. Global air pollution is returning to pre-COVID levels.
A year ago, data from satellites clearly showed a decline in air pollution coinciding with nationwide lockdowns put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. 12 months on, as restrictions loosen in some countries and regular activity resumes, nitrogen dioxide levels are bouncing back to pre-pandemic levels. In Beijing, for instance, levels dropped some 35% as restrictions were imposed. Now they're back to where they started from. Same stories unfolding elsewhere, like in Europe. Tom Rivers, ABC News, London.
A massive sandstorm combined with already high air pollution turned the skies over Beijing orange. Air quality indexes recording a hazardous rating. Authorities are urging people to stay indoors and stay off the roads. While sandstorms are relatively common this time of year, officials say this is the worst in decades. Denver digging out after the city's fourth heaviest snowfall ever, more than 2 feet of the white stuff. This is ABC News.
Are you more than $10,000 in debt? Feel like you're on a never-ending treadmill, staying in one place and never getting ahead with those minimum payments? You feel like there's no way out? Don't let the credit card companies bully you anymore. There are programs in place to help you get free of your debt, and you don't have to pay the entire amount you owe. The program at Total Financial Freedom can help you get debt-free in months instead of decades. Call Total Financial now at 800-533-6605. That's 800-533-6605.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Feeling lonely? You don't need to. There are friends in your community looking to be part of your life. Where are they? At your local church, of course. It's time to start getting back together for support, love, and friendship. There's no better place to do that than at your church. Make a plan this Sunday to be at one of the area's welcoming churches. You'll not regret it. The welcoming committee is there every Sunday. See you soon.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be back with you all for our second hour of today's broadcast. Coming to you live on radio, video stream, podcast, or our website, neighborschoice.com. That's neighborschoice.com. Let's go back to the headlines and see what's going on. What do you need to know about today as the world continues to try to deal with its latest bout of a contagion of fear, a contagion of ignorance? We're going to inoculate you from that contagion of fear by getting you to love yourself and take care of yourself, take care of your family, empower you with information that will embolden you to do great things to improve your life and those around you. Is if you love yourself, then you'll have the ability to love your neighbor as yourself, which is ultimately where we go. That's what we do. That's what we push people towards on this broadcast. And that makes a wonderful time because we embrace freedom on this program, freedom that allows us to empower ourselves, to do great things, to push ourselves beyond what we think we're capable of. That's what we're here for. But unfortunately, we have to deal with the world of politics. And one of the things is in the Daily Mail, I found that the British press, and sometimes they report things a little bit more accurately, not always, about America, of course, than a lot of the media in the United States. The United States is very, very in a difficult spot when it comes to accurate reporting. It's very hard to get a news outlet that can just talk about the facts and report the story. They really, 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 really love editorializing in the form of acting like, oh, look, we're just reporting the news, but you're editorializing every sentence. And you're manipulating information and distorting what's actually happening. And they justify it in these journalism schools as, well, we're doing the greater good. What is the greater good? For them, it's the worship of the state, the worship of the victim garb state at all times. That's what they want to sell you on. That's what they want to convert you to worship the state. Daily Mail says, payback time, Biden to repeal Trump tax cuts and propose first major federal hike since 1993 to help fund the $1.9 trillion COVID package. President is expected to raise corporate tax and personal rates for high earners. So the next package could reach somewhere between $2 to $4 trillion. And the news of tax hikes come as Biden prepares to kick off a cross-country tour promoting the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill he signed Thursday. See how they try to do little sales gimmicks? 1.9 trillion. They're like, no, we can't do 2 trillion. Somebody cut something. What can we cut? They probably cut what? The payments, the scraps that they feed you off the ground with your COVID check, the ones that they give us, they probably cut that first, right? So they said, hey, if we go from $2,000 a person, like you said, Biden, to $1,400, that gets us under that 1.9 price tag a little better, doesn't it? It gets us at the 1.9 instead of the 2 trillion, right? Because they're like, hey, we got to sell the dummies that this is a good thing. What sounds better? Does it cost us $2 trillion or does it cost us 1.99? It's like $1.99, Oh, wow, that'll make them buy it even more. See? And so, and people think that government is just some kind of this transcendent thing that's beyond marketing. It's beyond self-interest. It's beyond all concerns for mere mortals. That somehow when you have an election that is sacred and beautiful, that it somehow produces this selflessness in which there is no marketing consideration like profane market businesses. It's pure transcendent goodness that is bestowed upon us as they throw us little scraps on the ground to pick up, our little COVID checks where they give tons and tons of special interest people with better representation the real good chunk of the loot that they got from us. It's amazing how it works. And people think it's progressive. Biden's ideal proposals in the tax hike, Daily Mail says, is raising the corporate tax rate by 7% from 21% to 28%. He plans to raise the income tax on those earning more than $400,000, which is going to destroy small businesses, and implement a capital gains tax rate for individuals earning at least $1 million per year to help fund his next spending spree. I emphasize the word spree there. It's not in there. Also on the docket to get Americans to pay for the plan is scaling back tax preferences for businesses and expanding the reach of the estate tax. There they go again. And I'm sure they'll probably get rid of that tax hike that Trump got rid of the tax credits for the blue states with their state taxes. And I'm sure he's going to make sure that they get that back. So all politics is looting, confiscation of your wealth. It's a winner takes all. Winner gets to exploit and take advantage of people that didn't vote for them. It's just a petty, disgusting enterprise. And it's a shame that people can't think about this more clearly and just move on from having government so much in our lives. We could just breathe easier. We could relax. We could deal with viruses scientifically if we didn't have government retard so much of knowledge with its introduction of coercion and funding. It's just simple. We would know so much more scientifically if we didn't have government monopolize so much of the funding of science. But because they monopolize the funding of science, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what's outside of the majority opinion of their bureaucracy in science. You see, Galileo would never be accepted by government. You see what I mean? Nikola Tesla, these are not people that are going to be accepted by government bureaucracies. If government bureaucracy was the only one that decided who was going to provide electricity, they would have stayed with Edison's DC. They would have never looked at AC, which is what powers your world today with Tesla. Because Edison obviously had more political capital. And so therefore he had more sway over the situation. And so, someone like Tesla, he'd be like, who are you? Where's your special interest? Where's your super PAC money? You got nothing. Get the heck out of Dodge. But thank God we didn't have government pick what we were supposed to use in that moment in history, right? Because we moved into a better direction. And the same thing goes for today, right? We need to get that mentality back. But yet nobody talks about it. You listen to talk radio, most of the programs out there, all they do is tell you the Democrats do this, the Republicans do this. They don't actually get into the nitty gritty of what's going on and what we need to encourage. They just, basically they just react and act like the status quo is okay and everything. That's not good enough. We need to go beyond the status quo. We need to get our worshipful media out of our lives, get them to leave us alone, and get, you really think Biden can make your life better by increasing taxes on people? This is a guy who, how much money has his family made off of your tax dollars? And other tax dollars around the world, for that matter. All the governments that they go and shake down for cash. This is the guy that's going to save your economy. This is a guy who makes money off of voting for the Iraq war to blow up buildings over there and homes, and then he gives his brother a contract to build the homes back. This is your savior. This is a joke. And the only reason why we can't see it is that folks don't want to just call it like it is. They want to beat around the bush and say, oh, it's just we got to get Mitch McConnell back in the Senate. Oh, yeah, that'll solve your problems. Okay. Get old Mitch in there. Get Mitch back in there. That'll give you everything you've ever wanted. We all need to act more like a Mitch around here, don't we? Right? We should have little things. What would Mitch do? Is that what we need to do? What would Mitch do here? Every time you're thinking, should I loot and act like I'm helping people? What would Mitch do? He would loot, right? He would confiscate. That's what he did when he bailed out the banks. That's what he did when he, does everything he's done. They all do it. It's not about a personal thing for me. That's why I barely mention politicians' names like Mitch and Trump and Biden. But you can pick any of them. They're all the same. They all stand for spending money that they don't have, and they spend it on the people who invest in politics. And you don't invest as much as others do in terms of investing in these politicians. And they can talk about campaign finance reform, but that's not going to do anything when the media is providing in-kind donations to the tune of billions of dollars in media narratives and PR campaigns for certain policies, procedures, and politicians. And so it's a big mess, and the only answer is to throw the ring of ultimate power into the fires of Mordor, right? If you want to use a fantasy analogy or whatever story resonated with you as a kid, go back to that story and think about what it's actually telling you. It's telling you the same thing that A Neighbor's Choice is telling you. It's telling you that absolute power corrupts absolutely. So just absolutely say no. Just say no to the false high of playing the game of politics and expecting different results after it's failed you your whole life. We'll take a break and return in just a moment. Drop us a comment on our video stream. Search for David Gornosky on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you want to find video streams, or call us 727-587-1040. Back in a moment.
David Gornosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Reports a woman arrested at Texas bank after bucking business mask mandate. What are you going to do? Arrest me? And it says, I guess she was. Texas woman was arrested last week after allegedly refusing to follow a bank's mask policy and then refused to leave the business. In the police body camera footage, the woman, identified by CNN as 65-year-old Terry White, can be seen being placed in handcuffs by police inside a Bank of America branch in Galveston on Thursday. The video, which lasts for a little more than 4 minutes, starts shortly after the officers enter the bank and is pointed in the direction of White, who is standing in line and not wearing a mask. The Texas lifted its statewide mask mandate last week. Individual businesses can continue to enforce masking requirements. And so there she went to, she said, my money's in this bank and I'm going to take it out, White tells the officer. But then you have to abide by the rules. Businesses have the right to refuse services even if you're not wearing a mask. And see, I agree with that. That's why, it's a kind of a tricky subject, right? Because I don't like governments mandating choices. regardless of what they are. That's a barbaric, brutish way of dealing with society, to have a way of dealing with people. But at the same time, I do believe that businesses and private property is a real thing. And if that's what you want to ask of your customers, for them to be on your private property, that's to me a valid thing. Now, the tricky thing is, where it gets a little bit confusing in some ways, is that so many of these businesses, like Bank of America, they're not exactly purely entities of the free market, in the sense that they're always getting privilege by government intervention in the market. They get the bailouts, they get the special FDIC, they get all these different things that really stack the deck and prevent competition. And so they exist, and they have the power, and they have the expansion and the branches, partially because of their incestuous relationship with an intrusive government, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent in its attempts to be, right? And so that's kind of a tricky thing there. But by and large, I tend to lean towards the right of businesses to do what they need to do. But of course, the left is doing that when it works for them, but they also go against that principle as soon as it doesn't work for them. Like they want, of course, the famous story of the cake baker who is, forced to do a cake for different things he doesn't agree with. And the left says, no. If it's for our glorious revolution, you must do it. And I actually talked to the people behind that story, and the man was not just having some innocuous cake. They were also trying to force him to make a satanic dildo cake. That was another thing they were trying to do with Satan and stuff like that. That's what I was told by the people that were more informed of the story on the ground. And so but that's the glory of the left. They love that stuff. They don't you tell me there's limits to desire. Everything is about nihilism. I am the king. It's, that's what's interesting about the leftist culture. It's this weird fusion between collectivism and individualism, right? It's all about me, 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 me. Do not make any limitations to my desire unless the state tells me wear a mask and tell me to do stupid things and, stay in the house and never get sunshine and eat seed oils and never eat meat, even though our ancestors built their DNA by eating meat. No. When the government tells me to do something for the glorious cause of the state's worship and power, then we'll do it. But for my little personal nihilistic desires, that's totally sacred. See how those things go hand in hand? When you make nihilistic individualist desire sacred, it produces a state which is involved in every aspect of your life. Interesting how that works. So all you got to do is convince a population to be self-indulgent and self-absorbed and hate any kind of moral restraint or boundary. And what happens? They end up creating a very collectivist society in which the individual feels like they're the little king of their universe, but in reality, they're just a nice, pacified little sheep, little livestock for somebody else's benefit. And that somebody else are the people and the corporations and bureaucracies that benefit from a very intrusive nanny state involved in every aspect of our life. That's ultimately what the nanny state is. It's about making you a cattle. You are livestock. You have a purpose in being a utility for people to exploit. That's what nanny state folks want. That's totally antithetical to what's real. And that these things are gifts from God, not gifts from a failed religion of state worship. But don't tell when anybody does anything that looks like it's going to invalidate their all-encompassing push to get you to worship state power. So that's why, again, they vilify Florida. Daily Mail, again, the British newspaper says, hopes rise that U.S. will not face fourth COVID wave as unlocked Florida sees cases and deaths fall despite surge in the UK strain. Florida has seen a 75% decline in new cases since a peak there in early January. Yet the state leads the nation in confirmed cases of the B117 variant from the UK. CDC data shows a fifth of all U.S. cases of the more highly contagious and more deadly B117 strain have come from the Sunshine State. In total, Florida has recorded 690 cases, dwarfing much of the rest of the U.S., where 44 of all 50 states have recorded fewer than 100. The prevalence of the new strain on U.S. soil sparked fears of a fourth wave. Experts are now hopeful that its signals variants will not trigger another U.S. surge. Florida has pursued some of the most relaxed reopening policies, with spring breakers descending on beaches and bars. So, again, the media and the British press, they're one of the least state worshiping of the United States government compared to, the media in America. But, they treat Florida like a pariah a lot of times in the media because they don't have as much intrusive state control. And that's a problem for people who believe that the state is God and that the state can take care of your life through force better than you can take care of your life through nonviolent, voluntary interactions. This is the ultimate question that we have to face as a society. Do nonviolent solutions work to maintain order, or does violence, force, and coercion, is that what makes society civil and effective? That's the question of our time. It's always been the question. When, you look at history, it's always a question of, do you live by the sword and die by the sword, or do you live another way? Do you desire mercy or sacrifice? Do you resist something that's evil with violence or nonviolence? That's the question. And those who affirm that the state should be our nanny, they are affirming the principle that violence is the foundation of everything, that violence is our prerogative, and that we should wield it whenever we have enough political capital to do so. But that's not the answer, and we know it. We know it in our conscience that that's not right. Just because other people say it's right doesn't make it right. We know that. That's what our parents teach us. We know that a civil and sophisticated society is one in which you don't use coercion to solve problems. That coercion makes information more ineffective and less accurate. And it's something that we have to be on guard on in our time. And that means turning off so much of the television and the media that's confusing us about what's going on in the real world. And getting out there and experiencing it ourselves and finding out the truth. That's where we need to go. So we'll take a break and return. More in just a moment. For now, you can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Drop us a comment on YouTube or Facebook video stream. Or call us at 727-587-1040. Back in just a second.
Find the best coverage of Florida sports all in one place.
SportsTalkFlorida.com covers all the Florida teams you know and love with in-depth interviews, original coverage, and insight on the team that makes the news in Florida.
Whether it's the Bucks, Lightning, Rays, Jags, Dolphins, Marlins,
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered.
or any of our college teams like the Knowles, Gators, Bulls, Canes, or Knights. You can find it all at SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered. SportsTalkFlorida.com.
President Biden naming Clinton and Obama administration veteran Gene Sperling to lead the oversight of distribution of funds from the COVID relief package.
Together, we're going to make sure that the benefits of the American Rescue Plan go out quickly and directly to the American people where they belong.
The top Republican in the Senate taking Mr. Biden to task for his speech last week about the pandemic.
The president spoke in a heartfelt way about grief and loss, but his vision for the days ahead was badly lacking.
Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says the Biden administration inherited a healthy pace of COVID-19 vaccinations. The government says it will house up to 3,000 immigrant teens at a convention center in downtown Dallas as it struggles to find space for a surge of migrant families who have strained the immigration system just 2 months into the Biden administration. The Dow closed at an all-time high. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Neighbor's Choice returns live. Email me hello@neighborschoice.com or call us at 727-587-1040 if you have a question or comment. A listener on YouTube video stream says it's a form of Stockholm Syndrome. People who believe doctors save lives, which is legitimate to a point, and therefore they cannot be questioned. What they don't recognize is most have been injured by a corrupt medical system and its tentacles in the first place. Their blind allegiance is enabling them to overtake us at this time. Uneducated consumers are doing us all in. That goes back to my point about skin in the game. If you don't take the time to put the skin in the game to educate yourself and understand what's going on, then you're going to be a victim of really bad stuff, bad ideas, failed systems, failed paradigms of knowledge. As I've said before, they've had a war on cancer since the 1960s with Nixon, and it's not being resolved. It's not going in a direction of decisive victory. It's just constant stagnation. That's what you get when you turn your life over to monopoly government, monopoly bureaucracy. It's so important to understand this. You get endless stagnation and waste and slowing down of progress. And it hurts real people. Real people are suffering with bad, outdated forms of medicine as their frontline defense against chronic illnesses and acute illnesses. Real problems, real lasting pain and suffering and misery happens when we turn our minds and our lives and our health and our bodies over to monopolies of bureaucracy. You've got to understand this is so important, that this is the foundation of how we think about these situations, because it's thinking about them honestly and truthfully. Mitch McConnell said about Biden's speech that it was heartfelt, that it came from the heart. It was heartfelt, but it was not right. And that word heartfelt is at the heart of why the state is such a problem in our lives. Because they use rhetoric to sell us awful, bad, ridiculous things. But that rhetoric makes you feel stuff in your heart, right? Heartfelt is the problem we have today, because so much of all the bad stuff we have has been delivered to us over and over and over again by heartfelt rhetoric. Heartfelt rhetoric is the delivery vehicle for the poison that's affecting our lives. Heartfelt rhetoric. Heartfelt rhetoric. It's all about heartfelt rhetoric. Heartfelt rhetoric is what gets people to say, you know what? That politician, they're just doing whatever they can from the heart to make sure that we feel great and all this. Isn't that just so nice? No, that's what's wrong with our world today. We keep getting suckered by heartfelt rhetoric. That's what they do. And what happens? We all get sick. We just get sick because people want to follow whatever. They're told that this is what you have to have allegiance to. This is mimetic groupthink. This is herd mentality writ large. Locking people up into things that are not working for people. Failed paradigms of knowledge. This is the problem I have with Conservative Inc. Because you listen to how many years has talk radio had dominance in radio airwaves, and how many people have learned anything about seed oils or alternative solutions for a lot of these chronic illnesses? How many people could be benefited from understanding pioneering work like Dr. Michael Lasanti, who we've had on the program? And what does he do? He's doing research showing that azithromycin, an antibiotic, and doxycycline, another generic antibiotic, very, very inexpensive. He's done early trials showing that it's very effective at killing cancer stem cells, which is the foundation of that disease. But we don't have any attention and funding or anything directed towards something like that because why? We're all busy following whatever the government incentivizes us to follow, instead of looking at what actually makes sense, what actually is scientifically valid, and that which actually gets results done. But we're not able to do that, are we? Because we're so busy, mesmerized by heartfelt rhetoric. And that is the biggest problem we have. That's the biggest stab in the heart, of our culture today, is heartfelt rhetoric selling poisonous, toxic solutions. One of the things that I think has got to change is our inability to just tell the truth without being afraid of, social pressure. Fauci says on Breitbart to Trump voters rejecting COVID vaccines, it's a no-brainer, he says. It's a no-brainer. Has legal immunity. It hasn't been approved by the FDA. This is the first drug that Moderna has put on the market of any drug. It's the first type of vaccine when you do the Moderna and the other one that's been done like this. And yet it's a no-brainer. Yeah. And meanwhile, it's a no-brainer, Dr. Fauci, about the most likely origins of that virus, right? The Wuhan lab. That it was a no-brainer to use taxpayer funds to fund a lab doing gain-of-function viruses with the ACE2 site as the target in the Wuhan lab, even though those no-brainer State Department sent cables, didn't they? Telling you it'd be a no-brainer to stop funding that lab, didn't they, Dr. Fauci? Because they said that security protocols and the safety protocols were not up to par. But that was a no-brainer, wasn't it, Dr. Fauci? But you no-brainly funded it anyways, didn't you, buddy? Is that what you did? Yeah. And did you see him on an interview with a comedian from Mexico? And he just looked like a fool because he didn't know how to answer questions without. He's so used to having, sycophantic media. He didn't know what to do when someone asked him a basic question about what he was pitching. Yeah, no brainer, right? The highest paid federal employee had the genius idea of funding a lab in Wuhan, China that had serious security protocols being questioned by our own government. And he took your money as the highest paid federal employee and thought, this is a genius idea. This is a no-brainer idea. We should fund these guys to do gain-of-function research on these viruses. And, what happened? That's a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer. That's what this guy knows all about. Here's a story that is here's it. Italy prosecutor sees batch of AstraZeneca vaccine after death of man. This prosecutors in the northern Italian, this is in Yahoo, an Italian region of Piedmont, said on Monday that they had seized a batch of 393,000 shots of the AstraZeneca vaccine following the death of a man hours after he received the jab. So that's kind of in continuation of the story we started with about the problems with that AstraZeneca one. And another one that is making some attention is the protests that continue. You don't hear much about Canada standing up, but apparently, according to CTV News in Montreal, thousands of people gathered in Montreal to protest against public health measures. Another story says 10 arrested, over 140 tickets given as thousands protest in Montreal against the pandemic public health measures. So I guess people are having enough of it over there. Canadians they seem to put up with a lot more in some ways than Americans do about these heavy-handed approaches. In Australia, man, they have to get permission just to go outside and walk the dog, apparently, over there in some of those places. I don't know whatever happened to that Australian spirit we're supposed to hear about. Why are they rolling over so much? But hey, America's not much better, right? Except for Florida and a few places. It's somewhat okay, somewhat decent and dignified in the way we treat people. But the CDC, they're going to tell you when you can give a hug, when you can see people, but you have to go through the big pharmaceutical drugs. See? Isn't that real convenient how science works out? Isn't that amazing? You can't hug your parents until you get a patented, legally protected with no immunity. Immune from liability, experimental new drug. What's wrong with that? No brainer. No brainer. You can only hug your parents until you get Can't be a generic drug, you know? Isn't it amazing how science works out that way? How does science, and it's this TV science, right? TV science, like TV dinners. Do you like TV dinners? You like TV science? TV science tells you, you know, of course, that it just turns out this way, that only, you know, new patented drugs are the ones that are going to be the one that help you with this disease. It's nothing generic, no generics, no Z-Pak. Z-Pak has been demonstrated to go after ACE2, by the way, which is the senescent cell receptor that's linked to the cytokine storm that this virus can initiate. Isn't that strange? You know, that's Dr. Lasante's work. One of the most cited scholars, dead or alive, of any field, according to Google Scholar. And it's got, you know, this Z-Pak goes after the ACE2 host receptor for this virus very effectively. But oh no, you don't see why does Dr. Fauci not talk about that, huh? He'd say because they haven't done any science, but they don't actually do any proper science on it because I guess there's just no money for that. See, there's no money for it because it's not patented. So it's not a new drug, doesn't have a ton of cash flowing towards that direction. It's a generic drug. So who's going to push into that? And so, you know, they say, well, that's capitalism. No, it's not capitalism. That's called crony corporatism. That's what the state creates. These perverse incentives that just so happen to make science. It's just an objective field of knowledge, and it just so happens that it had to be a new drug that was patented that would be the only solutions that could come out for this virus. It couldn't have been something generic. It couldn't be anything natural. It couldn't be getting seed oils out of your body. None of that will help you. It's got to be something patented. Isn't that what science tells you? It's really stupid. You'd have to be an idiot to think that that's a scientific way of dealing with anything. That doesn't mean, for the low information CNN type viewers and stuff and listeners, that, you know, anything that's patented is bad. That's what binary thinkers do. You know, if you challenge a groupthink narrative, they try to put you in some box. Oh, what you're saying is anything that's a drug won't work. No, I'm not saying that. But what you're saying is science can never produce a solution like a patented new drug. No, I'm not saying that either. I'm saying, isn't it amazing how when you have a worldwide pandemic, the only thing that their government officials will tell you to take as the only thing that might help you are things that are patented. Not, you know, not anything that's, you know, something you can do in your diet or your lifestyle or sunshine or, you know, things to avoid nutritionally, and not anything like a generic drug like Z-Pak. No money there, no research money there. So, and these people say that they're liberals. They say they're progressive. They say they're against profits. Give me a break. It's embarrassing when they say this stuff. These people have no clue what science is about, and they have no clue what it means to care for your neighbor. Because if they cared for their neighbor, Dr. Fauci would be telling you about canola oil. He'd be telling you about soybean oil, but he doesn't want to because he doesn't know anything about that kind of stuff. He doesn't understand. And he doesn't care to understand. He's there to do a job. And his job is to do exactly what he's doing. And that's the producing the perfect results that he's producing, right? He goes on all the sycophantic TV media and YouTube stars, and he has a very easy time playing the role of someone who knows so much but really accomplishes so little. Doesn't even know how many masks you should wear, when you should wear them. Doesn't know anything, but you know, he does a job. He's very pro giant pharmaceutical new drugs. Don't know why. Just science worked out that way, huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, like it's just stupid that people believe this stuff. We'll take a quick break and return in just a moment. For now, drop us a comment on YouTube, Facebook. We'll try to get to some of the comments when we return. Back in a moment.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. Luca online. YouTube, it's maybe hyperbole, but it stands for the most part. So almost 40 years later, what's the status of a vaccine for HIV? Dr. Fauci, anyone? That's a good point. You know, that's what these people always promise, and they want to act so arrogant, like they have a monopoly on what is truth, and they don't have a record of anything to suggest that. They don't have a record to show any credibility on these things when on these matters. You can know a lot of stuff and not know anything at all. You can know a lot of jargon you learn from a textbook, but the textbook maybe is wrong on a lot of foundations. I mean, the textbook's answer still to this day is that heart disease is caused by, dietary consumption of saturated fat. That's a total crock of nothing. They lied to people for so many years, and it was the textbook knowledge. Textbook said you get rid of the butter and you replace it with margarine. Margarine is what is associated with all these problems. And the soybean oil that's in almost every product, you can't, mayonnaise, all this stuff. And this is the stuff people are eating all the time, these PUFAs, these little PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. And that stuff's in everything, and no one's, very aware of what they do to your body. They're the only food you eat that bioaccumulates in your body, like barnacles on a whale, but they do this inside your body. They eventually burst your fat cells and start spewing toxic stuff all over your body, and you're supposed to just sit there and just keep doing that to yourself. And these people, they give you this quackery, this nonsense, like Ansel Keys telling you that heart disease was associated with the consumption of meat and red meat and so forth. Total nonsense. But go ahead and listen to Hollywood about what you should do. They know exactly what you should do. They know exactly what you should do. These people are clueless. And we have to be able to just say that and provide alternatives. And that's what I do. Because it's some people just talk about, oh yeah, they're wrong, but they don't provide solutions for what you can do in your life. And I do. And that's what you should do if you have a platform to speak about media and talk about things. You shouldn't just use it to say the Democrats, the Republican. And what is that? Waste of time. People are tired of that. People are tired of that. And here's a story in the AP News. It says Vatican bars gay union blessing, says God can't bless sin. The Vatican declared Monday that the Catholic Church won't bless same-sex unions since God cannot bless sin. The Vatican's Orthodoxy Office, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, issued a formal response to a question about whether Catholic clergy have the authority to bless gay unions. The answer, contained in a 2-page explanation published in 7 languages and approved by Pope Francis, was negative. The note distinguished between the church's welcoming and blessing of gay people, which it upheld, but not their unions. It argued that such unions are not part of God's plan and that any sacramental recognition of them could be confused with marriage. The note immediately pleased conservatives, disheartened advocates for LGBT Catholics, and threw a wrench into the debate within the German church, which has been at the forefront of opening discussion on hot-button issues such as the church's teaching on homosexuality. So I think that's kind of a lot of people were, I guess, thinking that Pope Francis was going to go another way on that, but it doesn't seem like that's where it went, actually. So that's going to be interesting to see what the fallout of that is. Will Pope Francis lose his luster as a media darling because of this? Is that what people expect to see? Or is something else going to happen there? Another story to cover real quick. Much of Europe tightens anti-pandemic rules as the virus surges in AP. So, the tighter restrictions aimed at reining in surging coronavirus infections took hold in much of Italy and parts of Poland on Monday, while in France, Paris risks being slapped with a weekend lockdown as ICUs near saturation with COVID-19 patients. In line with an Italian government decision late last week, 80% of school children from nursery through high schools were locked out of classrooms starting on Monday. Ever-mounting numbers of ICU beds occupied by COVID-19 patients, steadily rising daily caseloads, and infection transmission predominantly driven by a virus variant first discovered in Britain have combined to make Italian Premier Mario Draghi's new government apply red zone designation on more regions. So, government, and I feel bad for Europe because Europe just seems to be, and this is when I have a disagreement with some folks in the conservative movement, is they want conservatism and, opposition to leftism to be more like the conservatives in Europe, which have long ago abandoned so much of respect for freedom and individual liberty and private property, private contract, and decentralization. And I think that's a terrible path to go because you look at Europe and they don't look progressive about anything. They're always heavy-handed, and Europe has had a surge in these diseases like heart disease and lung disease and Alzheimer's and all these diseases that are associated, diabetes and metabolic disorder. All these things are associated with the rise of seed oil consumption in Europe. And other factors too, but that's a huge, I keep emphasizing it because it's a low-hanging fruit to address. You can have debates about other things, but that's a low-hanging fruit. That's a huge, huge, huge factor. But they will lock people down, but they won't, and they say, and I know what they would say if they wanted to be slick, right? What they would say, the pro-lockdowners, is they'd say, look, people are not going to do what we tell them to do about their diet. So let's just tell them what to do, like, stay in the house and stuff like that. And there might be something to that, but I don't think it's as effective of an argument as they would believe. Is that you can see that there are millions of people who really cling on to every word from government, especially government that the television tells them is a good government. Donald Trump was a villain in the media's narrative, and therefore what he said, you're supposed to do the opposite. But with a media that tells you this is a good guy, Biden is a good guy, he takes care of you, or whoever it is in Europe that you're with, do what they tell you to do. So with that environment, you know, I think people could change their lifestyle. I think they could change their, their nutrition and get on a right path.
Oh, hello?
But what's going to happen with that? We have a caller, Billy?
Yeah.
Hey.
They're going to put me on the air.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're I guess you're live. Okay, how's it going, Billy? You have a question? Well, we'll try to get Billy back next time. If he has a question, tell him that he can call back in or ask us, and we'll try to get to it next time. We're almost out of time now, so we'll have to wait for that next time. But anyways, so that's where we have to go. We have to understand what's behind so much of the ignorance and the groupthink that's baked into our time. We have to understand that the media wants us. They want to proselytize to us to worship their state and to eat lots and lots of plant-based goop and seed oils. And that's a sad thing. That's not based on science. It's not based on the truth. It's something that we have to firmly keep challenging every day. And that's what we're going to have to keep working towards that, and just hold the line. Keep fighting for what's true. Keep fighting for what you believe in your heart. Our message is about love and nonviolence. The media, the TV party, and the state, they want coercion, groupthink, and conformity. Their education, their health guidelines, all of it is a sinking ship. We don't need to go to be more like Europe. We need to go and be more like Americans, right? Frontier, spirit, love of our neighbor, thinking for ourselves, and empowering the innovators like Nikola Tesla's. There's a lot of Teslas around us right now. Someone's listening right now as a Nikola Tesla in the making. We're going to find them, and we're going to amplify their product and their innovation so that the world can move forward. That's what progress is all about. I'm David Gronowski. Email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.